Let's try that again. Okay, here we go. We're going to get into it.
We're starting off strong
We're
here.
starting off real strong.
It is a Monday morning, let me tell you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Alliance Group podcast. And bright and early Monday morning, we have Miss Krista Pasionek from Asheboro, North Carolina. Recently moved from Colorado, but now you're in Asheboro, North Carolina.
Yep.
Welcome to Alliance Group HQ in the podcast studio.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It is actually a lovely morning, so
it is.
I'm okay with being here on Monday.
It feels like fall. I mean, we know fall here in the Atlanta area for sure. Every year I'm like, no, I think this really is fall.
Like, I think we're finally here.
Yeah.
No, it was nice and crisp in the air this morning. It was nice.
It was nice.
Help wake me up a little bit with my coffee.
Absolutely. So. Well, yeah, exactly. So we're hoping to wake everybody up as well. We have a fantastic discussion. We were talking a little bit right before this podcast, Krista. You're with Five Rings Financial, which obviously Five Rings is doing an unbelievable job. What you guys do at Five Rings core, it is about educating people more about money, the things that they never taught you in school, correct?
Absolutely. And it really comes down to, we don't know what we don't know. And unfortunately, these are things that we're just not taught. And if our parents didn't know, they didn't even know how to teach us.
Right.
So really, financial literacy and education is so important to really help eradicate the poverty all over.
Right.
So the more we can help and the more we can do and educate, the better we'll all end up being in the end.
And that's part of why Five Rings is seeing such an incredible success, over the past several years, absolutely exploding. We were having a really great discussion, and I'm glad that you're able to join us and get this discussion to our viewers regarding changing your money mindset, which is something that you work with clients in several different ways that we're going to talk about, kind of finding them where they are. But changing your money mindset kind of gets into the idea of the deep psychology that everybody has around money, right?
Yeah, there's a subconscious level of the way that you actually feel about and treat money. And I say treat money, I always joke a little bit that, money is a relationship. You have a relationship with money, and how you treat it and how you feel about it will ultimately be how it kind of feels about you back.
Right.
There's an energy behind it. I know it seems silly, but if you truly have a deep resentment around money because you've seen it only cause issues, or you've had difficulty with it in the past, or you've seen your parents or family struggle with it, there's going to be a deep rooted kind of resentment towards that money.
Right.
And you're going to ultimately push it away, even though you're consciously saying, hey, I want more of it. I can't wait to get more money.
Right.
You're subconsciously still going to be holding it at an arm's length because you're cautious.
And it really goes back to, we were talking, it goes back to kind of, a lot of people don't realize where that foundational psychology with money started. It starts way back when you're a child, right? And
absolutely.
If you grew up in a family where there were constant struggles, there was constant arguing about money, maybe struggles every month to
make
pay the
ends
bills.
meet, just to barely even get it going. You made a big one with that kind of arguing. We hear all the time that money is the main cause of divorce. Right.
Yep.
So if you're a kid and you happen to see your parents fighting all the time about money and stressing and, there's emotions completely revolving around the finances, you are subconsciously going to get this idea that money causes conflict.
Right.
Money is difficult. Money causes problems, and people only argue about it. There's no joy left to get out of money. So why would I want that?
Right.
Why would I want more stress in my life?
Yes, be overcome.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's a great way to put it. We need to conquer it. We need to overcome it. And now we're changing the entire dynamic of what the money is intended to be. Whereas if we can switch our mindset to make it into a positive thing, what it can do for not only you and your family, but how you can give it away, how you can donate it, what can it do for charities, what can it do for church, whatever is important with that money for you, what it can do for you and what it can afford you is what we should be focusing on. So that way we can actually start bringing it in rather than pushing it away.
Right, and it's these subconscious attitudes that it's really fascinating for me, because I imagine a lot of people that you start to have this conversation with regarding changing their money mindset, they're like, what do you mean my like they don't even realize.
No, oftentimes they don't. And it's starting to become a little bit more known, which is kind of helpful, really. I mean, people are starting to really hear this a little bit more of, oh, maybe there is something that happened, either to me or to the people close to me
Right.
that is causing me to have this perception around the money. But it is still a hard conversation to get started.
Right.
People you almost don't want to dive in, right? It's kind of like a therapy session, right? I'm not ready to uncover all those crazy things yet, because you gotta break it down to the core to really dissipate it and then be able to move on and move forward from it.
Right. So personally, when I start thinking about, what was my relationship like with money? What has my relationship with money been? I know that you kind of mentioned an example earlier. I was that example of single mom. There were 4 of us. She was working a job at a bank. She was a professional, but she was, going every single day, working every single day, 9 to 5. It was just her. And so money was hard, but she worked every single day, and bills always got paid. She was amazing. Thank you, Mom.
We love our mamas.
But to me, money has always been. I've always been personally. It's security. Like, I need security, and I want to build up lots of. It's kind of like I see money as a way of being safe. And making sure
Absolutely.
that nothing's going to happen because I've put in the work, and it's very much been around security for me.
Yep. And so you're relating that. And what's funny about that too, to segue just a little bit, is that we all have money personalities as well. And one that we're actually born with, it's truly ingrained in us. And then one that's kind of more of a product of our raise and product of our experiences.
Right.
But, kind of how you mentioned like safety, like having that stockpile safety, that probably means you're a saver.
Right.
You
Yes,
get
I
a
am.
joy and a comfort and probably even a little bit of a dopamine, drop from seeing this large pile of cash.
You are 100% true. That is exactly. It's not going out and spending it. It's not purchasing or buying that next big thing. For me, it's looking at my Mint account, right, and just watching
That
the numbers.
stockpile, and if it
Exactly.
starts to lower just a little bit, even though there might be plenty in there, there's a little bit of a panic moment,
You're
right?
100%. Yes, it's like you've been reading my diary.
I thought I put it back in the same spot I found it, Samuel. I'm sorry about that.
It's all good.
But it's true. So we have these different personalities, and then we have these different, things that we've experienced throughout our lives that change everything. And it doesn't mean that it's not all struggle either.
Right.
The other side can experience it just as much. Not that, I'm extremely well off or anything, but I noticed the way we talk about it is going to make a big impression, not only to our own subconscious, but to those listening.
Right.
So, for example, my daughter had said something to me after we moved that really kind of took me aback. My daughter was 11 at the time. We had just moved from Colorado to North Carolina. We hadn't sold our house in Colorado yet, so we were paying 2 mortgages for almost a year. And so my husband and I were being very conscious about the way that we were spending money.
Sure.
Or waiting to make certain purchases until the house was sold. So that way we weren't acquiring debt. And I would say to her, we just can't do it quite yet. We got to wait. And she came up to me one day and she just goes, "Mom, I'm really worried." And I go, "What?" And she goes, "Well, you just keep saying that we can't afford these things." And just listening to, my gosh, she's listening. Like, I didn't even realize, and it wasn't a struggle. We were just trying to.
Yeah, you're just being, smart.
Frugal, right.
Yeah, frugal, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good time to be frugal right now.
Right. And so the nice thing was is that afforded us the opportunity to have a conversation about it a bit more and really go a little bit deeper and have that financial conversation that most people don't have with their children.
Kids, right?
But it really took me aback to go, oh my gosh, you're listening to the extent that you're allowing it to stress you out, because she's like you.
Right.
She's a saver, man.
Right.
You give that kid $20 for her birthday and she's still going to have it 2 years later.
Yep.
And so that's who she is too. So she's sitting there going, "Do you need help, Mom?" I'm like,
Right.
"No, we're good. We're fine." But it's those little things that we say, we hear, and if they're hearing it, your subconscious is hearing it too. And it really is changing that mentality that you have towards that money, and therefore kind of changing the energy of the money itself.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we were talking about, obviously, the first step is for someone to, explore their own relationship with money. But then the very next step, once they've kind of peel back some of the layers of that onion, is, oh, wow, my mindset about money was very affected by my upbringing.
Yep.
I've got 2 kids, right? What am I saying? And what kind of relationship with money am I creating for them?
Right.
and in your case, for things I didn't even realize that I was doing.
Yeah, I had no idea I was even portraying this kind of fearful,
Right.
situation on her. It was
Right.
completely unintentional.
That's incredible. So, how do you? What's your typical experience for somebody that you kind of delve into this conversation with? I mean, do you see that people have a more negative mindset with money when they come to talk to you, or?
I'd say most of the time when they're first coming to talk to me, most of it is a little bit of a more negative mindset. Because let's be honest, if your mindset's already extremely positive and you're already in this abundance, state of mind, you're probably doing all right.
Right.
Now that isn't to say that you don't still need some assistance and maybe need to have help on what to do with it, where to put it, those kinds of things.
Right.
But usually that's just a totally different conversation. When people come to me and they just say, I really just don't know what to do.
Right.
I mean, they kind of are at that square one where they're like, I might have it, I might not, whatever situation. I just don't even know how to get started. And so when we talk about, what do you have, I'll actually ask the questions of, tell me about your family. Tell me your current situation, tell me where you grew up, where are you from, and really just making it a very general conversation, getting to know you. And it's amazing how once you start to just kind of uncover these, like you mentioned, the little layers, start to peel them back, they become a little bit easier. And people will start to divulge a lot of information that you can pick up on.
Right.
They'll just tell you, oh, my parents got divorced when I was 3. You're like, oh, okay, how was that?
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's funny because you almost feel a little bit like a psychiatrist.
Yeah, right.
I'm not, but you kind of feel like one in a way, and just kind of helping them make their own realizations, and then making them realize that it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Helping them realize that, oh, I can do it differently. I don't have to do it the same way I've been shown,
Right.
and maybe there is other ways that I never even knew existed.
Right.
And how awesome would that be if I can make it work for me differently than it worked for the people that preceded me?
Absolutely. So one of your goals is not only to help people kind of explore their money mindset and possibly, if needed, change their money mindset, but the ultimate goal is generational wealth.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, generational wealth. I mean, ultimately, generational wealth in a nutshell is just passing your wealth on to the next generation, right? And that can be in so many different forms. It can be in the form of cash. It can be in the form of assets, your home, a business, whatever that might be. And what we are starting to realize now is that we're wanting to leave a legacy, right? We work and work and work, and we work hard throughout our lives. And hopefully you're working on something that you have a passion for, something that you truly adore and love. And you want to make sure that that work and the accolades and rewards that you've gotten for your hard work are going to continue on past you.
Right.
So when we look at generational wealth, we're talking about mindset. So let's just continue on that way. It's more than just the physical even. It's like when I had the conversation with my daughter. It's starting the conversation. Having that conversation with your current family, whether it's the generation below you, your children, the generation above you, your parents, formulating a plan of what you want that legacy to look like.
Right.
Really, the biggest reason why any of these financial plans fail is because we fail to talk about it.
Right.
We don't have the conversation. We don't make a plan, whether it's out of fear, out of shame, out of guilt. These are all those negative words that, again, come around money.
Right.
So, avoiding and ignorance is the plan we choose to take. And we all know that's not a financial plan. So having the conversation and knowing what you want is really step one. And then going from there and learning and educating as to the ways you can make that dream a reality is going to be step 2.
Right.
And usually money mindset's going to come in there somewhere with, what do we need to do to change this up so we know it's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like a lot of people don't have the conversation because they don't think it's possible. They just think it's, oh, well, that's not going to be for me. So
Right.
why even bother?
Why even bother? Right. And something that Five Rings Financial and you personally have done in your business is show the average, everyday middle income American that there are lots of things that you can do to,
oh my gosh,
to grow your wealth, to protect your assets, and kind of go through a game plan that no matter what your income might be now or what it might grow to in the future, there is always something that you can do to set yourself up for success financially. And really the only thing you can do wrong is nothing.
Right. Ignorance. Ignorance is not a financial plan. I can't say it enough.
Or avoidance or
yeah,
ignoring.
or avoidance or anything,
Right.
any of those. But it comes down to really kind of, again, figuring out, and you had just said it and I lost it.
The financial foundation.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, we have that where it's not just passing it on, it's how we pass it on.
Right.
Right. Making sure we're doing it in the right ways, because there are ways that if we're not doing it properly, it's going to completely go away and dissipate when we pass anyway. So we want to make sure we're doing it in the right way, doing it in the way that works for us. But what's crazy about Middle America is, a lot of financial advisors and financial professionals tend to work with that kind of higher echelon, that top 2% of the wealthy. Right. And they're getting all this help, and we're seeing them just get, wealthier and wealthier and wealthier because they're getting assistance, right? They're not doing this on their own.
Yep.
They have a panel of experts that are helping them utilize their money in a way that is going to continue to grow the wealth.
Right.
And then here's Middle America raising their hand going, hey, I'd like...
I need strategy.
I'd like a little bit of help too.
Right.
I may not quite be there yet, but I'd like to get there one day.
Right.
How can I get from point A to point B, right? And what we essentially need is a financial navigation system. When you're going on a road trip, right?
Yep.
And you're going to travel from Atlanta to, let's say, to Colorado, you're going to type it into your phone and you're going to pull up that GPS, and it's going to show you usually 3 different routes.
Right.
How to get from point A to point B.
Yep.
Well, essentially what we want to do at Five Rings Financial, and what I try to do personally, is work like your financial GPS system. The goal is to truly hone in on where your current financial location is. Where are you right now? And the more details, the better.
Right.
Because if you say, hey, I'm leaving from Atlanta versus I'm leaving from, 123 Main Street in Atlanta, you're going to get a little bit closer of an idea of where you're at. So the more details, the better.
Yeah.
Then we're going to talk about, where do you want to go? Because if you don't give your GPS a location or a destination, it has no idea where to take you.
Right.
So now we want to talk about, what is that future destination? Where do we want to get to? And again, more details, the better. I want to be able to get you to that exact address if possible.
Right, if possible. But if it's 457 North Street in Colorado, that's great. You have a very specific idea. But even if you just know, I want to get to Colorado,
right, that's
okay
something,
too.
Right? But we're going in as much as we can, because those details might come up later, which is great.
Yep.
So now we have those 2 points. And now we can look at the multiple different routes. Again, it's not a one size fits all. There are different options. We can educate and learn about, which routes to take. And then the best thing is that you're a financial expert. What we're supposed to do is help you reroute as things change.
Right.
Whether it's as life happens, as the destination changes.
Right.
You might change your mind where you want to go.
Yep.
Well, now we need to reroute and course correct. So that's all Middle Americans are wanting. They're wanting somebody to help guide them from where they are to where they want to be.
Yep.
And that's ultimately what the education and showing them the different options they have available is going to do.
Yep.
And so if money mindset's part of that, which usually it is, and really just kind of looking at those little details, that's what our job and what we love to do is.
It's really interesting, Krista, because, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I really am thinking, the difference between people who are financially successful in the larger picture, right? As opposed to people who are not financially successful and have a lot of stress when it comes to money. It's not necessarily the income as much. We all know the stories of those multi-million-dollar athletes who got paid these giant contracts and then blew it all because they obviously did not have any financial strategy set up. They were just flying by the seat of their pants with no GPS, and they ended up going broke, right? So income isn't necessarily the what determines success. And then you also have people who are, just the average American family, making $40,000-$50,000 a year, but they're strategizing right, they're budgeting correctly, they're saving, and they are more financially successful in the long term than that multi-million-dollar athlete who had no strategy, blew it all, and is now in a really. So the differentiating factor. Of course, more income helps any financial situation.
Sure.
But strategy, having a sound strategy, is really your best indicator of success.
Absolutely. And you actually took the words right out of my mouth, because success is not the same for everybody. It doesn't look the same for everybody.
Right.
And financial success isn't even some people's goals. The financial success may not be the money. It might be how your family is protected,
Right.
how the legacy can live on. It's not having a big pile, but rather how that can be properly utilized
Right.
to take care of the things that are more important to me. And that's why kind of having that really distinct, defined plan is so important, because we can look over here at, this person who's a multimillionaire versus this person who, is more humble and has a smaller home. And,
Sure.
and their goals, they might be perfectly happy and successful with what their goals are, versus the person with millions of dollars might still be wanting more, might still not be there. They haven't quite reached it yet.
Right.
So the comparison doesn't count. And that's why I also hate these, when people go, how much should I have in my savings account?
Right.
That's not for me to answer.
Right.
That's for us to uncover together of what makes it comfortable and good for you.
Right.
There's no blanket black or white. It is truly, we need to figure out what it looks like for you. What is that success for you? What is going to make you feel comfortable about your financial situation at the end of the day?
Yeah, and it's, again, a big part of that conversation with financial success. Yes, of course, it's the dollars and cents, and it's, hopefully passing something on. But I think also a huge benefit to sitting down and making a plan is not only the results of that, but it's also something you kind of just touched on. When you're done doing the planning, you feel so much better. You feel like, okay,
Yes.
I've kind of sorted my financial household. I have a plan now. I know what I'm going to do, and I feel just much more secure and happy. And my relationship with money is a lot better than it was.
It's now
before I
content,
sat down.
right? There's
Exactly.
there's almost this exhale moment of like, whew, okay, finally I can breathe. The stress of that is gone. It's taken care of to the extent that I am happy, content, or even elated at this point
Right.
for getting that part done. And then we have to think too, though, that as life develops, we might need to reapproach it, right? That we know that we don't just do it once when we're 35 and, it never pops up again, right? We're perfectly
Right.
settled. And so continuing, if we're talking about a relationship, continuing that relationship and continually not mending, but just reinforcing that relationship with money is the same way. I joke with women all the time that, your relationship with money is like a relationship with a boyfriend. If you ignore it, you don't spend time with it, you talk badly about it, you don't treat it well, it's not going to stick around.
Right.
It's going to continually need you to reinforce that relationship with it, so that way it actually sticks around and wants to give you more attention too. So
Right.
it seems silly and cliche,
Wow,
but
no,
it's not just a one time and done
Yeah.
thing. It's a continual process that we're going to keep going through, especially as we raise that income and as we start to raise that wealth. We need to reinforce that relationship with it.
Right. So you do a lot of different programs to kind of, as I said earlier, kind of find people where they are.
Yep.
And find them in their comfort zone, in their environment, with a tailored message when it comes to, but it all comes back to money mindset. It all comes back to kind of doing the financial fundamentals. One of those things is Wine, Women, and Wealth, right?
Yes.
So you were just speaking about women. Coming to somebody with a message about money that they can kind of relate to and feel comfortable with is really important. Tell me about what you're doing with Wine, Women, and Wealth.
Well, Wine, Women, and Wealth, I'd love to be able to take credit, but we all know that was created by an amazing woman, Denise Arend, who works with me at Five Rings Financial. And her whole purpose really was that she had sat down and met with, just started meeting with women. And as they just had conversations around money, she just realized that there was a need to be able to have comfortable conversation, right? We kind of touched on it earlier that we just don't talk about it. And I don't know if you were raised this way, but I was that to talk about money is rude, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask somebody how much money they have in the bank. I remember one time as a kid, I actually asked somebody, how much money do you have in the bank? And my dad was like, you don't ask those questions. And I mean, I get it, but it's, we get hushed or shushed or something about, hey, you don't ask these questions.
It's kind of a taboo subject. Even,
right, it is.
Even in a group of very close friends, it's just kind of like...
And there's a discomfort. You don't want to offend. You don't want to upset. I mean, there's so many things, but we say that the main taboo subjects are sex, religion, and politics. But look anywhere on social media, you're going to find all three of those.
Oh, yeah.
But there's still nobody talking about money. So money to me is the most taboo subject. And if we don't talk about it, how are we going to know what to even do with it?
Right.
So we're really putting ourselves at a disadvantage and doing ourselves a disservice by not having these conversations.
And sharing experiences, right?
Absolutely.
Like sharing experiences about money so that you feel, validated if someone else is.
It's not just you, right? Oh,
exactly.
It isn't just me. Other people experience this too.
Absolutely. Or if someone's doing something, hey, this has been a really interesting thing that I did. Oh, and learning from each other.
Absolutely.
Right? But you can't do that if you're not allowed. You have to put blinders on and only focus on your own financial situation and know nothing about anyone close to you's financial situation.
How else do we learn about anything? Right? I mean, we learn from each other, from both our successes and our mistakes.
Right.
And that ultimately, at its core, really is what Wine, Women, and Wealth is about, is to really create this community of women who feel comfortable and empowered about their financial situation by talking with each other and having conversations and having real deep dive discussions about our experiences with money. And so what we do as those that are kind of facilitating these events in these communities is that we're just really initiating the conversation. We're creating this safe space to be able to kind of start talking about it and then really create a comfort around realizing that we're not alone.
Right.
That we all have experienced these things and learn from, the person to your left and, teach the person on your right. And it's not just us doing it up at the front of the room. It's the whole group working together to truly, really empower each other that we can do this money thing right. So we can do it differently.
This is women coming together.
Absolutely.
And there is wine served to make it just a little more pleasurable.
Everything is a little bit better with wine. I mean, let's be real.
So I think it's fascinating. It's so simple, but it's brilliant. And look, money can still be taboo outside of these walls. If you want to be polite to everyone, that's fine. But within these walls of Wine, Women, and Wealth, this is a safe space. And not only is it a safe space, we're encouraging you guys to actually talk about this stuff.
Yes.
And let's let those barriers down. Let's learn from each other. Let's teach each other. Let's validate each other. Let's drink some wine.
We've laughed together. We've cried together. I mean, we're women. What do we do? But it is. There's a lot of emotion around money. Money is intimate and money is emotional for a lot of people, especially for women. And we get told that we shouldn't be that way, but it is what it is. And there's nothing wrong with feeling some emotion around money. Right. Emotion can actually help you change the way it's, going and be what directs you in the right direction. So coming together and creating that safe space, and I joke a little bit, having some wine to lower the inhibition a little bit, of course. In a way, is just such a great community to know that you have other women to lean on that have either been there before or may be there in the future that can learn from you. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've learned something from the women in the room. Just there's no joke. There's been one time that I didn't even talk for 45 minutes. The women just were going back and forth and the conversation was deep and meaningful and we all got so much from it, even if it was just something as little as a comfort of knowing there's other people that have experienced this too, but then we can grow and learn together to only better our situations in the future. Yeah.
So Wine, Women, and Wealth has been going on for years. Denise Aaron, as you mentioned, she started this out in California. Yeah. It's Five Rings, and the women of Five Rings have really grown this to where there's Wine, Women, and Wealth
all over the country,
all across the country,
and even virtually. So if you are in a space where you don't have one near you, we have ones virtually that you can join, and you'd be amazed how much we can still have amazing conversation on those kind of virtual platforms.
Right. Absolutely. That's awesome. So Wine, Women, and Wealth, obviously, for the ladies. You also have Money 101 meetings that you do, another kind of institution of Five Rings Financial.
Absolutely.
This one started by Mike Wilk, and it's this amazing class. Tell me about Money 101 and kind of how it differs from Wine, Women, and Wealth a little bit.
Yeah, so Money 101 is a bit more structured. So it really is, an educational kind of seminar workshop, whatever word you kind of want to use there. Usually around 45 minutes, and it's really used to teach the fundamentals. These are the things about money that we really should have learned in school. There's no reason why we're not learning this stuff, and it's anything from the time value of money, how just small amounts of money over long periods of time can grow into large amounts of money.
Compound interest.
And then compound interest, really breaking that down and making it not so complicated.
Right.
I mean, I remember the first time somebody said, explain compound interest. And I'm like, oh, good Lord, I have no, we weren't taught, right?
Right.
And so when
Which
you break
is
it down,
crazy.
it's
Like,
simple.
how did we not learn this in school? It seems very important.
But it was extremely to know a square root. You know, it's important to know that one. And
the
Lord
Pythagorean
knows.
theorem, but not the rule of 72.
The angles of an isosceles triangle. I mean, that's definitely served me in my life. But it's these little things where it's like we're learning all of these other stuff that we are never going to use.
Right.
When we could, in an hour, in one class, teach these basic concepts that literally a third grader can understand.
Yep.
They're not difficult. And just showing that there's different ways that if you just have this small amount of knowledge, you'd be amazed how much better you're going to be with your finances just from day one.
Right.
And they really are just meant for education. Nothing is sold. We aren't going to ask you, go to the back and buy something. We're not going to ask for your child's, firstborn's blood or something to come in the room. It really is just, we want people to know these things.
Yeah.
In all honesty, if I could go into a junior high school and teach these things, I would.
Right.
Just to go, hey, this is going to be important. You may not think it's important now, but if just two people in that room, went out and told their parents, hey, you know what I learned today?
Right.
It's just spreading that awareness. And that's ultimately what Money 101 is about, is to really show people how the money can be simplified and that it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. And these are the very fundamental basics every single person should know.
And, again, between Money 101 and Why Women and Wealth, this is how Five Rings has exploded, because people are reacting to this. People are soaking this up. They're putting their hand in the air. They're saying, I want this financial education. And it has really been the secret to how Five Rings has grown so quickly with new clients, with new people that want to learn more about money and do so in this comfortable environment.
Absolutely. And the thing about Money 101 is, I say it is those fundamental basics, but what you don't realize is that there isn't a single person that goes to here that goes to them that doesn't learn something.
Yep.
I mean, every single person walks away going, I had no idea. So no matter how much you think you do know about the money, I guarantee something new will come up from it. Yep. So it really is for everybody, and it is about just making people feel good about their situation.
Yep. And you specifically, obviously, you do Why Women and Wealth events, Money 101. Again, it's all about meeting people where they are and where they're comfortable learning. Profit First is something that you were telling me about. It's something specifically for a program for small business owners, right?
Yeah, really, and really all business owners. So Profit First is a book and a method created by a guy named Mike Michalowicz. Took me a very long time to say his last name, kind of like most people take a long time to say mine, but I have it down. It's Mike Michalowicz. And Mike kind of, he was somebody who was a very successful business owner. By the age of 32, had sold his business for millions of dollars. Wow. He had gone to his wife and his family day and goes, we made it. It's amazing. Finally, we're good. And within a couple of years was flat broke. And he, kind of realized that profit is different. He always thought it was an event. He thought it was something where you work hard, and you get to this end, this end result of I'm going to sell my business, and that's when I'm going to make my profit. It's an event. And he realized that's not the case. It's a habit. Profit, there's a different way to do things, and he wanted to really create something that could eradicate entrepreneurial poverty all over, because we know that 50% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, if not more, right? And if of those that are successful, only 50% of those truly become profitable.
Right.
So, there's so many businesses, 75%, if I did that right, probably not, that's okay. That really ultimately are failing to do what they really set out to do, which is become profitable and eventually lead to financial freedom. Right. And so what we realize is that there isn't a problem in the way that we're doing, or the sales that we're doing. We don't need to increase sales. We don't need to grow the business. We need to change the way that we're doing the money, that we're using this money, that we're doing the books. And so what Profit First does is really hones in on what's called this axiom that we believe. And an axiom is just, generations before us believed it, so we believe it because it's logical, right? Well, problem is people aren't logical. We're behavioral, and we are always going to act on our behaviors. So logically, we say, and we've been taught, that sales minus expenses equals profit. Right? Well, the problem is that you put profit at the bottom line. Profit is at the end. And psychologically, we as humans will treat anything that comes last as unimportant or irrelevant. And so we subconsciously believe that sales and expenses are the two most important things. If we can just make the sales and the expenses work, then what's left at the end of the day is profit.
Whatever that might work out to.
Right. And whoever you meet goes, well, there's never anything left. At the end of the day, it's gone. And there's so many different psychological reasonings behind this. You have something called Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law basically says that whatever our consumption of something will increase or decrease based on its availability. So perfect example. If you are a college student and you are given a week to study for a test, you're going to take a week to study for that test or to do an assignment. Let me say do an assignment. I like that one better. You're going to take a week to do that assignment. Yep. But if you're given one day to do that assignment, you're going to do it in one day. And you're probably going to do the same quality of work. It's just the way that our brains work. We will consume more if we're given more. And we will consume less if we're given less. And the reason why is because if we're given less, we all of a sudden become a little bit more creative. Right. We become a little bit more innovative. How can we make this work in the time allotted to reach this deadline?
Yep. And you're more efficient.
Yes, absolutely. Effective, efficient, all of these things. And so the same thing happens with our bank account. The more that's in there, the more of it we're going to use. It is true human nature. So as business owners, we have all this money come in. And the first thing we do is we pay our expenses. Well, then we also find ways to justify paying more expenses.
Right.
Whether that
I'm
means
investing in my business.
Right. It's right. We tend to put it right back in so that way it can grow. Well, the more it grows, the more obligations we have, the more the expenses go up. And then all of a sudden we need new equipment and we justify the reason why, and so it's this vicious cycle of more in, more out.
You're
more
constantly
in,
sacrificing your profit. And actually that's kind of seen as like a virtue, right?
Right.
I'm putting everything back into the business. I'm a really hardworking business owner. I'm very dedicated to my business. I'm putting everything back in the business. I'm not taking any profit.
And at the same time, you are living in a studio apartment with your bed on, milk crates, drinking Diet Coke and eating cherry Pop-Tarts.
And you're not being fulfilled, right? I mean, yes, it's good watching your business grow, but you need to make sure that you are taking that profit and that you are building the life that you set out in the first place to enjoy. And
really, that's the first thing that causes burnout. Right? If we think about it, what happens is we end up, doing all this hard work and feeding all our money back in and it never, we never see the fruits of our labor and then we're burned out. Right. And we don't want to do it anymore. Think about a shareholder, right? The biggest thing people don't realize is I do want to clarify real quick that compensating yourself with a salary as working in your business is different than a profit. A profit is truly a reward for taking the risk to own and start your business, like a shareholder. Right. If you are a shareholder and you own stock in a company, you probably likely get a check once a quarter as a, hey, here's your portion, right? And they do that to keep their shareholders happy. If they're not doing, there's never a time, let's say you own it, and I'm not picking on a company, but let's say you own it in Alliance Group. I'll just pick on you guys. Sure. And, you get that check for, $50 at the quarter going, great, yes, I got stock, I got some money back. Right. There's probably not a single part of you that's going to go, I'm pretty sure Alliance Group could use this money, and I'm just going to go ahead and give it back.
Feed it right back.
I'm just going to go ahead. You're not going to do that, right? Because the profit is what they're sharing with you to be invested and take the risk of being part of this. It's the reward. Right. We should be doing the same to ourselves as the business owner. You are a shareholder, if not the sole shareholder of this company, and you deserve a reward for the risk and everything that you took to do so. They give that profit, out and that shares out to you because it keeps you interested as a shareholder. They don't give it to you, you're going to walk away and take your money elsewhere. Right. Well, as a business owner, we should be experiencing those same joys of being able to know that we are getting something as a reward for owning our business. And that's on top of our paycheck. And by the way, if you own a business and you're not paying yourself a paycheck, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it's a whole other conversation.
Because that should be part of your expenses.
The idea of profit first is kind of like the whole pay yourself first thing. It's a very, very common savings technique. Pay yourself first, profit first, And then with what's left over, that can be what you put back into the business. And as you were saying before, when that is more limited, what you're putting back into the business, and there's very strict parameters around that, you're going to get more creative and be more efficient with that money just naturally.
Absolutely. So yeah, all it does is it just flips it to where we say that sales minus profit equals expenses. So like you mentioned, you take that profit off the top, and in the beginning it might be $1 or 1%. I'm not saying it's going to be huge.
Right.
It might take time, but you take that off the top, and whatever is left is what you have to be able to pay your bills and do expenses. And Mike always says, if you can't pay your bills, you can't afford your bills. So you need to figure out a way, where do we need to cut the fat, in a way, is where do we need to pull back? Maybe we don't quite need to buy that equipment yet. Maybe we need to wait a little bit, but you'll make do. I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced it. If there's ever been a time in your life where, the money got a little tight, and you kind of were like, gosh, I don't know how I'm gonna do all this. You figured it out though, right? You made it work. And it's amazing what we as humans can do when we're under pressure, right? When we need to make it work. And so it's just kind of forcing that law to work with you and be your ally and show you, hey, profit's done. You took your profit. This is what you have left. You are a profitable business. You can actually say that you're a profitable business, and we'll figure it out. Because we do. That's what we do. We're entrepreneurs. We're business owners. We're innovative. It's already in our nature. So why not go ahead and let that natural behavior work towards your advantage rather than against you and just blowing all the money. So that's truly the theory of it. And there's that habit piece, right? Profit is a habit. It's not an event like Mike thought it was in the beginning. I thought I arrived.
Right.
Nope. It's this habitual process of always putting the profit first and then taking the rest and paying everyone else and figuring out how to make that work.
Over a long period of time, just watching the results pile up.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Krista, to talk a little, I want to change subjects a little bit here. Talk a little bit about, we've been doing a lot of talking about saving and about paying yourself first and about profit first and about things like this. There's the underlying step that a lot of people skip, which is the protection part of it. And I want to talk a little bit about the financial household, and you've referred to it before as like that foundation of protection. So what role in this, we've been talking throughout this podcast about GPSs and plans and strategies and doing things the right way and building and saving and all of that. But there is, right from the beginning, there's got to be this, you say, this foundation of protection that has to go in place.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about that.
So kind of touching back to that generational wealth situation, the most important part of your financial household, well, really any house, if you're building a home, the first thing that you're going to do is lay a foundation.
Got to do that.
It's critical, right? And
not just a foundation, but a very solid foundation.
Strong foundation. And it's something to where, if you don't, we all know what's going to happen, right? It's just going to come crumbling down at the slightest sight of disaster.
You can build the most beautiful, most amazing house possible, but if the foundation is faulty,
one little thing can make the whole thing. It's just that little needle in the haystack that just cause it all to crumble. So that foundation, what a lot of people don't realize too, and I'll get on the foundation itself, is this is also oftentimes part of the part you don't see.
Right.
Nobody, once the house is built, you don't tend to see the foundation.
Hopefully you don't.
Right. Maybe if you have one of those split level attic, but you don't tend to see it. So it's usually this underlying strength to the household that you're building that isn't even visible. So you don't even know, many people, you don't know you have it.
Right.
So when we look at that, the biggest thing there is protection. Right? We are protecting this household before it's even built. We want to make sure that we're building it strong enough. And one of the best ways to do so is living benefits life insurance.
Right.
Living benefits, when I learned about it, really blew my mind. I had life insurance in place. I actually got life insurance when my husband almost died. He was working on a drill rig, and he accidentally grabbed something and got hit with 220 bolts right through him. Came home that day and goes, well, I almost died today. And I kind of looked at him and said, okay, instantly went on, found a life insurance agent and got life insurance that day.
Wow.
But I, was looking at death, right? Oh, he almost died. What would happen if this happened?
Which is very important to prepare
absolutely.
for. We never know what's going to happen.
I was pregnant when the time, when this happened. So
wow.
we had a lot of things going on, just bought a house, just got married, all these things. Well, then when I was shown living benefits, and which is the kind that you don't have to die to use,
right.
Like I said, it blew my mind. Knowing that, death isn't necessarily what we're all worried about when it comes to our financial household. Let's be honest, and this isn't to be cold or crude, but death is cheap.
Right.
I hate to say it, death in itself, it's okay, there might be some burial or cremation costs, funeral, that kind of thing, but ultimately that's said and done. It's done. It's over.
Yep.
It's the after effect that usually people tend to worry about. But what if you don't die? Right. What if you get diagnosed with cancer? I've had a couple of friends just this year diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, well.
I have actually, I will be filing my first living benefits claim tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
A 42-year-old had a stroke. It doesn't discriminate, right? So, but these are the things that can be detrimental.
That can throw
to
your
our
entire
household.
Financial GPS, your plan, your strategy.
Completely off course.
You can do all the planning. You can get with Krista, and you can do all the planning and the strategy. But just like that house, just like that beautiful, $1 million perfect house that doesn't have a foundation,
right?
The one strong wind can come
absolutely
and blow the whole thing over if you don't have that financial foundation.
And I always say, if I teach you and educate you how to build your wealth and how to grow this financial household and make it bigger, but I am not showing you and telling you how to protect it, I'm not doing my job.
Exactly.
I mean, that protection is going to be more critical than any of the wealth that you can build. Absolutely. Because while we know it takes time to build wealth, it takes 2 seconds for it to all be blown away.
Just like an architect coming in and showing you to build your house. You're the architect of someone's financial plan.
Absolutely.
You're going to show them, yes, let's build this beautiful house, but the architect's going to start with the foundation. Right?
He's going to say, first.
I'm not designing this thing if we're not going to protect it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't even own a house without having insurance on it. I mean, it's, we insure our house, we insure our car, we insure our health, we insure our phone, for God's sakes. I mean, it's, we insure
true.
these things, but we don't think about truly insuring our life. And it goes beyond that health insurance, and it goes beyond death.
Right.
It's that, you get diagnosed with cancer at 40 years old, and you still have a lot of life left to live. But if you don't have the right things and the right protection in place, then you're going to wipe out everything that you've worked so hard for, everything that you've been doing. And then when you recover, you're going to be starting from square one.
I really, I don't think people think it through, right? Because we don't want to think about this stuff. We don't want to think about the dying, of course. We don't want to think about getting cancer or having a heart attack or stroke. But as we all know, you just said you have 2 friends recently. I have a couple people very recently that have had things happen that obviously they were not expecting. But people don't go through the exercise of thinking, what would actually happen to me? Let's just put myself in these very unpleasant shoes for a second. Let's just go through the mental exercise. What if I have a major heart attack tomorrow on my way home from work, right? And I get home, and I have to go to the hospital, and I'm in the hospital for several days. I have to have a surgery. I'm out of work for months.
Right.
What is actually going to happen financially to me? If people went through that exercise, I think they would realize, oh wow, there's going to be some major financial problems that immediately present themselves.
And I get it's not fun to think about. It's not fun to talk about. As a matter of fact, when I talk about it, I usually try to make my potential clients laugh because I
have to keep it light a little bit.
It's not it's not the most enjoyable thing to talk about. So if we can't laugh about it, but
so let's just talk about it right now and get it done with,
done.
And then we'll move on, and you'll know that you're protected forever.
Right, and if you're a business owner, especially. This is extremely critical because if you're not working, your business isn't functioning, most likely. Maybe if it's a little bit larger, but you still have, you to pay, potentially employees to pay, bills to pay on that business. You have prospecting to do, whatever that might look like. So that hurts there. If you are employed, and even if you do have things like long-term disability, it's only at a portion.
Right.
It's usually 60% on average.
The best ones are going to replace 60% of your normal income.
So you're still taking this hit on your income. And the last thing you want to worry about when you're trying to recover from a major illness is your finances. We don't want to be stressed because, as we know, stress is just going to prolong the healing process. And then we're just in this vicious cycle of trying to get better, stressing about how we're going to make it work. Living benefits allows you to have access to this enormous cash reserve that can literally alleviate all of that stress and pressure to where you can just focus on what's important and keep everything else going. And so
and keep that financial household again
intact. Yep.
Right?
And so it's that
you're
way.
going to get better. You're going to overcome this. This is going to be a really crappy phase of your life that you're going to look back on. Right.
Yeah. Right.
But it is going to be behind you because you set up the right protections.
Yep.
You had the financial assistance to get through it. And now you can go back to building,
and as you said, if somebody could put themselves in this situation, and it's amazing you say that, because when I meet younger people that come to me and ask about life insurance or these different things, I usually will say, absolutely, but can I ask, have you experienced something that, makes you kind of come to me? Without a doubt, it's always my parents or my uncle or my friend or somebody experienced all these things, and it made me realize, well, that's great that at least something made you realize, but let's realize it all before anything, before you even have to experience that from your friend, through your friend, being able to spread that word that these are even available. I mean, that's the other big thing about the education, right? Is we know death insurance is out there. We know that traditional death-only life insurance exists. Many people don't even know this is an option.
Yeah, I know that's.
Or they think it's unaffordable.
Right.
Which it's not at all. It's extremely affordable.
As we're filming this, it's actually Life Insurance Awareness Month as we speak. So living benefits is obviously something huge that we do at Alliance Group, especially during Life Insurance Awareness Month. It's about educating people.
Yes.
It's about educating people. Number one, life insurance is not as expensive as you think. People, I think the stats are, people overestimate it by 3 times what the actual cost is.
I could say that.
Yeah. Which is crazy. So,
the other thing that I always like to point out that I'm surprised how many people don't realize is when I do have somebody come to me that say that they have heard of living benefits and they, and it's expensive, it's because they think it's only available in permanent insurance.
Right. Yeah.
They have no idea that, with the right companies, it's actually available on your term insurance.
And it costs the same.
And it's the same price. Yeah. So why would you get the old kind? So it really is something that we are misinterpreting how expensive this is. It's not at all.
Cannot skip that critical protection stage.
Right. It really is stage 1.
Yep.
It really should be in place before you even start building the wealth.
Yep.
And if you've started building wealth, great. But let's make sure that protection is put in place as soon as possible, so that way you're protecting it, just like you do all of the other important assets of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Krista, amazing conversation today, changing your money mindset. It's a fascinating discussion. It's amazing and awesome that you're going through this with your clients, with your prospects, talking about that money mindset and really changing attitudes about money. Awesome, fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.